Okay. Should be. Sarah, just do you see that it says recording on your screen?
Yep, it does.
Okay, great. All right, I think we are ready to go.
Perfect. So just a few other housekeeping things. We're planning for this to be about an hour, so we'll try to stay as close to that as possible to respect your time. If you have any questions throughout, you can put those in the chat and we'll be monitoring the chat, but at the end we'll have time to, if anybody has questions that they would like to ask. So our topic today is talking with your teen or tween, how to actively listen to your child, foster independence, and maintain connections. So we are going to go through over those things throughout the presentation. To begin with, we just wanted to start with introducing ourselves so you know who we are. I'm Jessica Stevenson. I'm the 6th grade counselor. This year, I had 8th grade last year. We will follow our kids, so I will cycle up to 7th and then 8th grade with the current students I have this year. I have been doing this for a long time. I don't know how many years exactly. I should probably figure out what my start date was, but probably about 20 years. And I've been at McGee for about 10. I've also done at times private practice on the side with college age students. Personally, I live in Cromwell, so I'm in the area with my husband, and I'm into nutrition and fitness and all things wellness. And then Ashley is our 7th grade counselor. Ash, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I think this is my 13th year as a school counselor. This is my 3rd year at McGee. Prior to that, I was in Bloomfield at a 6 through 12 magnet school for 10 years. So I'm the 7th grade counselor this year. I live in Cromwell along with Jess, although for some reason we never run into each other in town. Not sure how that works, but I live in Cromwell with my husband. I have 3 children. One is in 6th grade, so I'm right there with most of you with the middle school age group. I have a 3rd grader and I have a little girl in 1st grade. So the things that we'll be talking about today, I am either guilty of doing myself. And so what we're going to be talking about today, I'm not a perfect parent, so no one is. So some of the things that we'll be talking about today, I'm also going to be learning from you and the strategies that you share as well. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I am the 8th grade school counselor. I think this is my 23rd year here at McGee. I was an art teacher here for the first 14 and then switched over to school counseling. I live down on the shoreline with my husband and our 3 sons. I have a 7th grader, a 5th grader, and a kindergartner. I would say definitely nobody told us when we had babies that we would eventually have teenagers. And it is a totally different beast. Even in this field, like Ashley said, I teach a lot of this stuff to students and parents, et cetera, but to apply it to your own life is a, really different thing. So I am also learning right alongside of all of you with my tween currently.
Okay. So I'm assuming the reason that most of you are here is because a lot of these things sound familiar. If you're a 6th grade parent, you might just be starting to see some of these things. If you're an 8th grade parent, you might already be in the thick of it. At this stage, I feel like sometimes you look at this little creature in your home and you're not even sure who they are anymore. Because your sweet little kid has now become very vocal and sometimes dramatic and moody and tired and irritable. So our hope is that by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of why this is happening and then have tools in your tool belt to help you better manage these years. Our overall message is that you are not alone and that this is really, really normal. Can you switch, Ash? I don't think I can switch slides. Thanks. So this is normal. If you're experiencing some of these things, that actually means your kid's exactly where they're supposed to be. This is a developmental stage and it's part of them becoming more independent. They're going to talk and rely on you less and on their friends more, which can be really, really hard. Sometimes they can also become really defensive or irritable, and this is an attempt for them really to gain separation from you and independence. The loss of the connection that you might have had with them when they were a child during this time can feel really yucky. Just keep on reminding yourself that this is normal. This is where they're supposed to be, and you're not a bad parent. But there's going to be things, hopefully throughout this presentation, we can give you some tips and ideas that will help you manage this transition better. So we're going to play a clip by a clinical psychologist, Dr. Becky Kennedy. We'll send the presentation out as well because we have some links in here, but we linked her Instagram page. She's got a lot of good information on parenting kids of all ages. And she's going to talk a little bit about the emotional roller coaster of parenting a teen and give some insight based on her clinical practice of what teens are really needing at this time.
Parents of teens and tweens, this is for you. I want to share a story from my private practice because I think it tells a really important lesson. I was seeing a 14-year-old who was having a ton of conflict with her parents. There was a lot of rudeness, a lot of defiance. Almost every conversation ended with the 14-year-old screaming, "You don't understand me. I can't talk to you about anything. Get out of my room." Her parents would say back something like, "Well, just make everything so difficult." The girl would slam her door and they would be separate. I'll never forget the moment when she looked up at me. Her angst was gone and sadness had kicked in. And she just said to me, and then when I opened the door to my bedroom, nobody was there. And I'd say, "Didn't you yell at your parents to get out?" She said, "I did. But they didn't come back." This is the dance of the teenage years. Teenagers need to push parents away. It gives them enough distance to figure out their separate identity. And also, teenagers need us to keep trying. That doesn't mean you have to be a punching bag. Of course, you can say, "Look, you're a good kid and I care about this and I need you to say that to me in a different way so we can work through it together." Of course, you can say that, but don't stop trying. Teens need you. They need your connection. They need your support. They need your effort. They need your love.
So we just thought that was like a really good example of something you might see typically, but also kind of what they're looking for and what they're trying to gain from some of that behavior and what you can kind of do to support them and kind of deal with the roller coaster of their emotions and do that dance that she talks about more gracefully. Sorry, I keep trying to switch it. Okay, so this is normal. We know that. What do we do now? What can we do to support them through this developmental stage? So we're going to talk about that and we're going to break it into a couple different sections. Ash, can you go to the next page? Thanks. So what should we do? Sorry. We want to encourage detachment, and we're going to talk about this in the next couple of slides of what that actually is, detachment parenting. And it's a really hard one, but it's a needed one because I think it's hard because it doesn't feel great for us. We want to consider when and where we're having these conversations. I think somebody kind of mentioned that in the chat. Are you setting and modeling good examples for your kids? I feel like with technology and everything right now, sometimes listening skills aren't necessarily modeled by the adults, staff members in this building, anybody that's a parent, spouses to each other, and then talk a little about how you are responding and how you can respond differently. And I kind of encourage you to assess and reflect where you are currently as we go through some of these slides and then make adjustments where you feel is necessary. So what is detachment parenting? Kind of sounds a little scary because we want to be as connected and close to our kids as possible. But it's really fostering your teen's trust in him or herself so that they're able to make decisions and handle things on their own. And we want to do this obviously progressively, starting off with smaller things. Maybe your sixth grader wants to stay home alone. So you start by running to the store for a half hour, knowing they're really close. They know you're really close and you kind of set them up for that. And then the next time you leave them home a little bit longer. So it's kind of like giving them those skills and talking through how to handle certain situations and then giving them a little bit of distance from you and then kind of adding on to that. So the whole idea of detachment parenting is letting go and allowing more freedom, but doing this while remaining connected throughout and caring and continuing with communication. So how do you start to detach? Here are 5 kind of, sorry, it's passing time. Accept and be okay with the fact that you're going to be less informed. They're going to share more information with friends than they are with you. They might share more information even with their friends' parents. their teachers, their coaches, their counselors. This is normal. So it's important maybe to have conversations with kids at this age of who are the people that you trust for them to also get information from or to ask questions to, because you might not be the first person anymore. Accept that your child might not share as much with you as he or she once did, and that you might also have less in common. And this is okay because they're developing their own personalities and separate identities separate from you. And we want them to be able to do that because it's important at this stage for their development. Accept that they might prefer to be left alone, which means you might be alone as well, which I feel is also a hard one, because we're no longer our child's favorite company. Their social world now matters more than we do. So they're on their phones a lot and they're talking and FaceTiming their friends at night. The fourth one is accept that we now are less in charge, which kind of moves to the fifth one, which is accept that you'll encounter more opposition from them. So, and this, you want to choose your battles, and just remember that this is their attempt to try to be more independent from you, even though they're giving you a hard time and might be more defiant. And then Ashley is going to talk about the next couple of slides, and how to create balance and detach while remaining connected.
All right. So again, how do we manage allowing for this independence and detachment that we just kind of talked about, but still maintain that connection with your kid, with your child? Because obviously that's the goal, right? Like you want to let them kind of start doing their own things, but you still want to be connected with them. You still want them to come to you when needed. You still want to be that person for them. So how do we kind of balance all of that? All right. So when we think about this, the when and the where are important. So are you in a private or a public place? And just, I think we need to think about like, what would I need in this situation? Like, would I want to talk about something that was bothering me if I was in a room full of other people? Probably not. So it's the same thing for your child, especially at this age. They become very self-conscious, right? Like they may not want to talk about something personal or something emotional if they're in a public setting. And that includes at home too. So if their siblings are around, or friends that could be listening in, that is going to impact their ability to be ready to open up to you. Is your child tired or hungry? And I think, again, that goes for adults. Like when we're hangry, like it may not be the best time for our child to ask us a question or ask us to do something. We might be, more snippy. And again, it's the same thing for your child. So thinking about like, are they fully awake yet? Like asking them like, for the second they wake up, like, hey, like we need to talk about what happened last night. when they wake up is probably not the best timing. So making sure that they're in a calm place mood wise when you have that conversation. And that can be hard sometimes as parents, because sometimes if we know there's something going on, we want to know what it is right then and there, and we want to be able to fix it right then and there for them. So waiting on that can be really difficult, but you will get more out of your child if they are in a calm and a good place, ready to have that conversation. So also thinking like, are you setting a good listening example? So our kids learn from us when we don't think they're watching, they are watching, right? So are you on your phone watching TV or doing something else? So if you're asking them like what's going on with their day, but you're not giving them eye contact and your eyes are on the TV. And again, this isn't meant to say that, you're a bad parent if you do these things. We all do these things. It's just something to keep in mind if you are wanting to kind of open the channels of communication with your child, that, if you're distracted, they may take that as a sign that you don't care enough to listen. That may not be the truth, but that's the perception that they are getting. Making sure a shared activity doesn't come as a distraction. So one of the things that is one of the ways that we encourage parents to kind of have these conversations is sometimes it can be while you're talking in the car or while you're playing a game with them. That may be a way to start the conversation, but we also don't want that activity to become a distraction as well. So that can be, a balance that you have to manage. Is your body language inviting? So if you're, standing there with your hands on your hips and you're like, tell me what's going on, they may not feel, that may put your child like automatically on the defense. Facial expression. So just from a personal example, I remember when my son was younger, like 4 or 5, and I was upset with him about something and I was trying to have a conversation with him about it. And he said, Mom, like, why do you have your mad face on? And I was like, I don't. And then he was like, yes, you do. You have your mad face on. And I was like, okay, like I didn't even realize that I had my mad face on, or what he perceived as my mad face. But he didn't want to talk because he thought he was going to be getting into trouble. So, and again, that can be hard because it's not something you always recognize that you're doing, but it's just something to be cognizant about, because it may be the reason why your child is telling you, like, I don't want to talk to you about this right now. So body language is key. So are you letting your mind wander? So again, as adults, we have a million things going on every day. You're in the kitchen, you're making dinner, and your child is in the other room and they're trying to talk to you. And you're like, can we talk about this later? I'm in the middle of dinner. I say this all the time, right? And again, these things are going to happen. Like sometimes kids just have to wait. You have things that are going on. But you want to do your best to remain present in those moments, because, if your child is opening the door for conversation and you're showing them that you're not ready to hear it, they may be more closed off in the future to taking that chance to have that conversation with you. Are you using patience and silence? So sometimes less is more. If you allow for silence instead of rushing to comment, then your child will naturally fill that silence. And that can be really hard for even us as counselors. I remember when I was going in through grad school, and one of the things they really focused on was learning how to sit with silence, because the student or the child will end up talking. It can be really awkward and you may feel like you have to fill that space. But just give your second, even just if it's a minute of wait time, just let your child, because they may be trying to like organize in their own mind what they want to say or how they want to start the conversation. Just give them that time. You can say like, I'm going to sit and wait. Like when you're ready to start talking, let me know. Okay. So using that patience and silence is key. So again, are you setting a good listening example? So when you're asking questions, and this is really easy to do at the dinner table. If you have family dinners at night, when we do that at home, I try to open with like, tell me what was the best part of your day today, and then what was the worst part of your day today. Instead of saying like, did you have a good day? That will require usually a yes or no answer. Did you have a good day? Yes. Right. So if you say like, okay, well, tell me what made your day good today, where it prompts more communication and more of a conversation. Okay. Situation with a friend. So a closed question example would be, when did this happen? At recess. Was this your new friend? Yes. Right. Those are closed questions. More open questions would be like, well, tell me how you're feeling about this new friend. Like, can you tell me about the situation that happened today that got you upset? So again, just asking those types of questions that are going to provoke more of a conversation with your child.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about responding to these little beasts as we're experiencing them. I will be fully transparent, with my own 7th grader. I don't always do a really great job at this. And I feel like through my experiences with him, I'm trying to learn everything that I can so that I do it better. And I think that as parents, like Ashley and Jess both said, like, we're not perfect, but we can be good enough. And the more you just seek to learn about this, I think that says a lot about you as a parent. So for responding to, your kiddos, and some of this kind of echoes some of the things that Ashley just talked about. What our kids are craving most is like understanding and connection. And while all of their actions and their words scream otherwise, it is truly comes down to those two things, understanding and connection, and that's what they all want. I would say right now, a lot of you probably hear about Ruler. It's something that it's a social emotional learning, curriculum that we're doing in all of our schools. What elementary school did it, girls? Hubbard?
Hubbard. Yeah, Hubbard, I think it started with Hubbard.
Hubbard's been doing it, I think, for like 5 years. So if your children went through Hubbard, they got exposed to it a little bit earlier. We are doing it now at McGee and will continue to do so. Certainly there will be lots of kiddos that probably come home to you and they're like, oh my God, I had ruler today. It's so boring. It's not my favorite time of day. But really what we are trying to do is get students to look at their emotions, look at other people's emotions, look at how they're responding to people, how to regulate their own emotions. Teachers also to regulate our own emotions so that we can be what we teach the kids, the best version of ourselves. If you go back and ask your students, they all had a lesson through Ruler with us about what is your best self? What does that look like? They actually got to do like a brainstorming activity where they really got to try to delve into what their best self looked like. I provided the example. I'm very transparent with my ruler group. They all know I have a 7th grader who gives me a very hard time. And my example to them was, I work a second job and I came home on a Friday from being here all week, and my kitchen is a mess. There are dishes everywhere. One of my kids is on, the Xbox, one's on the Oculus, one's on the TV. My husband's scrolling through his phone, and I walk into, basically my house is a disaster and I'm leaving to now go to my second job. And I was not my best self. I didn't check in with myself before, and I just sort of, as I called it, unleashed. And they got to see me just freak out about the kitchen and what it looked like and nobody doing anything and them being disrespectful and yada, yada, yada. I'm sure most of you have been there at some point. So I come home later that night at like 11:30. Typically my entire household is sound asleep. And I come home to my 5th grader sitting in our kitchen with this very concerned look on his face. And he was almost teary and he says, I'm so sorry, mommy. Like, I feel so bad that, you work a second job and that you, we were being so bad to you and we were being so mean, and the kitchen is spotless. Every dish is done. The living room is picked up. And I felt horrible. And so I had to take that moment to sit with him and talk to him about my best self and how I was certainly not my best self. And my intention was not to just have him turn around and take care of all those things and then spend the rest of his night worrying that he had greatly disappointed me. But I think one of the greatest takeaways for me was the idea that I came back to repair it with him, to sit down and be able to say, I'm sorry, I wasn't my best self. I didn't do it right. But I learned from it, and to be able to talk about it with them. And so the way that you respond to your kids, you don't realize it, but it does say so much. And I asked the students when I told them this story, I said, how many of you have had the experience where someone, a friend, I try to use friends because they're sort of navigating, a lot of arguing and things like that go on in school. And I said, how many of you have had, some encounter with a friend where you weren't your best self and you argued about something or whatever, but then you came back and you repaired it. You talked about it. You circled back. And I would say out of the 22 kids in our group, maybe 2. So then I asked, okay, in your own house, like you have siblings or parents or whoever you're with, you experience something where they're not their best selves or you're not your best selves and you have some sort of argument or whatnot. How many of you come back and repair it? And again, like 2 of them. And so I think like as a parent of a middle schooler, like one of the biggest things that I've learned is coming back, learning to respond in a way where you can come back. Don't minimize the way that they're feeling. Don't judge the way that they're feeling. I often have to say to my husband as I'm navigating his relationship with my kids, you don't get to decide how they feel. They have their own feelings, and let's approach it with curiosity so we can help drive connection between our children and ourselves. But you don't get to judge the way that they feel. Let's listen to what they are saying. So again, I'll say it again, and you'll hear me say it a few more times. They're seeking understanding and connection. Thanks. So Ashley, touched a little bit upon ways that we respond to our kids. It's kind of like she mentioned grad school. This is like counseling 101. If any of you went to school for counseling, these are strategies and skills that they teach you in some of your first classes when you learn to be a counselor. And basically open-ended questions. So like Ashley said, not how was school today, but what was your most challenging part of your day today? Or what brought you the most joy in your day today? Paraphrasing what they're saying, you'll commonly hear me say to my students and to my own kids, so what I'm hearing you say is, or what I'm hearing you say is that you're frustrated, but then check back, is that correct? Because you want to make sure not only are you paraphrasing, but that you're getting it right. It tells them, tell them more about like how you are seeking this understanding and connection that they are also seeking. I think it was Jess that said, you don't always need to solve the problem. So that's a counseling 101 thing. We are not here to solve the problems for our students. We are here to help facilitate them solving their problems. We can lead them to it as much as we need to. Some students, might need to really be led to it, but we are there just, we're sort of like the middleman between them, finding their own answer. And it's the same as being a parent. You can move. Actually, you can, that's fine. You can stay there. I think another piece of the, not always being there to solve the problem is that we don't always know the answers. And part of like the repairing and the connecting with your child is to be able to say, I don't actually know the answer, but how about we figure it out together? Again, it drives that message that you are also seeking connection and understanding. Dr. Becky was the video clip that we showed earlier. This is one of her books I just started to read. I'm a few chapters in. I can tell you, I listened to it on my drive to work and back. It's a really great book. If you ever, if you're a reader or you want to listen to something, I have enjoyed it, but even just her Instagram that we did link is really great. I like the beginning of this quote. This is a quote from her, and she talks about how, a lot of kids will come home and they'll say, I think she says, so-and-so's a better runner than me, or, says something along those lines. And what we want as parents is to jump in and say, oh, no, that's not true. That's not true. And that comes from a really good place. But again, they're seeking connection, and they're looking for us to be less afraid of whatever the reality is that they're sharing with us, that maybe in fact there are kids that are just better runners than they are. And so the three things that she talks about in her book, like validating for them, addressing their feelings, and connecting through curiosity. So I'll be transparent. This was actually in the last week of my life. Benjamin, my 12-year-old's, all upset with us. We took away him playing, his Xbox till he got some work done that he needed to do for school. He thought this was just like so wrong, and he was arguing with us, and he was not his best self. And I was trying to remain calm, and I wasn't yelling, and I kept a calm voice. And my husband, sometimes when he argues with him, I tell him they sound like two 12-year-olds arguing. And Ben says to my husband, they were talking about basketball somehow in this argument, and he says, "You don't even know the name of my coach." And that was something that just sort of like rolled off Jeremy, but for me, it screamed something. And so the argument sort of stopped after this, and everybody went their separate ways. Again, I think the repair is really important. So later on, I knew everyone had calmed down a little. I went back up to Ben's room and I said to him, hey, listen, I heard what you said earlier to Daddy about not even knowing the name of your coach. I want you to know that I think that was really brave of you, because what I feel like what I was hearing you say was, Daddy, like, you're not as involved as I want you to be. And is that correct? And he kind of like gave me this look like, yep, that's correct. And I said, I just want you to know that it's really brave. Can we think of a couple things that would be, really great that maybe we could all do as a family so that you are feeling Daddy's connected and he's not always working, et cetera. And it just opened up a conversation, because I went back and did that repairing, and then Jeremy came in and we all got to talk more. But if you listen to any of this, she sends that same message: validate, address their feelings, and try to connect with curiosity. You can go to the next slide. And so this is just kind of touching back on what I've just said, but also what Jess or Ashley had said. Paraphrasing what they're saying, what you think that you are hearing. Clarify also, always, just to make sure that what you are thinking you hear them say is correct. Dr. Becky's line, she says over and over again, and I use it all the time, is, can you tell me more about that? It just, again, it shows them that you are curious. You cannot claim to know exactly how they feel. We were all teenagers once, but we were teenagers in the 1990s. We weren't teenagers that likely had to navigate what they do with social media and things like that. And again, you can't claim to know exactly what their experience is. You can go on to the next one. The conversation don'ts. Don't just jump to give them advice. That is so hard as a parent. It's hard as a counselor to just not jump in and give advice. I often now have started to ask if the advice is something that they want, and quite often it is not. You again have your own experiences, and if it's an appropriate time to share them, that's great, but don't turn whatever the situation is around and make it about you. Really let the conversation go in a direction where, again, you are curious, you want to connect more with your child, even when they seem outrageous, and drive that connection between the two of you. And then this is from a TED Talk that Dr. Becky did, but another great clip that sort of illustrates some of these things. We can't hear it, Ash.
And struggles, they come with the...
Sorry, I'll start that again. I was muted.
There is no such thing as a perfect parent. Mistakes and struggles, they come with the job, but no one tells us what to do next. Millions of parents around the globe struggle with this issue. I always say the same thing: get good at repair. So what is repair? Repair is the act of going back to a moment of disconnection, taking responsibility for your behavior, and acknowledging the impact it had on another. Apology often looks to shut a conversation down. A good repair opens one up. There's no exact formula. I often think about 3 elements: name what happened, take responsibility, state what you would do differently the next time. It could come together like this: hey, I keep thinking about what happened the other night in the kitchen. I'm sorry I yelled. I'm sure that felt scary, and it wasn't your fault. I'm working on staying calm, even when I'm frustrated. A 15-second intervention can have a lifelong impact. Now that I've reconnected with my son, I can do something really impactful. I can teach him a skill he didn't have in the first place, which is how kids actually change their behavior. That never would have happened if instead I had been blaming him for my reaction. There is no.
I think like one of the takeaways for me for that also was that I think about what I want for my children when they have future relationships, future relationships with their own children, with friends, with other adults in their lives, with coworkers. And I want them to be able to, you know, recognize when they're not their best selves, you know, see when they do something that, like she just said, like it perhaps didn't go the right way, and come back and repair that. Really seek to be connected to in relationships in life and understand people with a really open mind. And so modeling that behavior has become just a goal in my life. As we all have shared, we all do it really poorly sometimes. But again, the message that I said in the beginning, like, as long as if you're here today listening to this, then you're a pretty good parent, because you're trying just like we are.
All right, so, Sarah, you're on mute.
I was just going to read that there's, I know, Ashley, you went to the first internet safety webinar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I attended. I don't know if anyone else here attended the internet safety webinar that was put on by Scott Driscoll. It was a couple weeks ago, I think it was. It was very good. I strongly recommend that if you weren't able to attend, that you attend his next webinar. When I send out this recording and presentation, I'm also gonna just link in there. On his website, he has some family guides that are really helpful. So I will link those for you, but I would recommend that you attend his webinar in March if you're able to. And then we will be doing another parent coffee. We don't have a date set for that yet, but we did one last year on social media use, and we felt like it was really helpful for a lot of parents. So we'll be doing, and I feel like you can't get enough of guidance and support in terms of social media, because it's always changing. So there's always new things coming out. So we'll be doing another parent coffee session on that as well.
In the resources, there's like, I think it's called, Good Enough Parenting. It's called it a quiz. It's just an interesting little, I printed one, looks like this. And it's just like it's almost like a worksheet, and it talks about being a good enough parent. And it's just if you ever like have a few minutes where you just want to like reflect on your own parenting, just it has questions to think about, like for example, good enough parents recognize that life has its ups and downs, failures and successes. They spring back from disappointments, take them in stride. What do you think? Or good enough parents care about letting their child be a child rather than focusing on what the child will be like or achieve as an adult. What do you think? And it just goes through a series of questions, but interesting resource just for reflecting.
All right. And like I said, I will be sending out this presentation, so you should be able to just click the links within the slides when I send it out. And that wraps up our presentation. This is our contact information right there is listed. Again, Miss Stevenson is 6th grade. I am 7th grade, and Miss Hughes is 8th grade. So you can feel free to reach out to any of us with questions. I would also recommend that you follow our Instagram page, which is McGee_school counselors, because much of what you saw today, like in terms of like videos or articles, things like that, we link in our Instagram page to try to keep parents informed with things that we, think are useful. So we would recommend that you follow that as well. I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we can open up any questions that you may have. So if you have any questions, you can unmute and, you know, shout it out, or you can put it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. If there's no questions, just one thing I wanted to share too is if you're thinking about like what's one simple thing that you can do to just work towards this. Even if you don't eat dinner together as a family every night, I know everyone has crazy schedules and sometimes you're running one to sports and you're, you know, running your kids everywhere at night. You can't always sit down for a family dinner, but I would really encourage you to, at some point at night, just ask that question. Like, tell me what the best part of your day was today. What was the worst part of your day and how did you handle it? Like just one simple thing like that. Every day, making that a habit gives your child the chance or the opportunity to know that like, they're going to have that chance to talk about what impacted them that day, good or bad. And that's just one really simple thing you can do.
I love, Dr. Becky, I was listening to the book this morning, and one of the things that she talks about, like, I think just sort of like, it's important to think about as a parent. It made me feel better, I guess, is really what it did for me. Is she talks about like, it's okay to like realize that like two things can be true. Like you can set boundaries and your child can be upset and it's okay. Like, she uses the example in like real life, like it's okay for you to be happy for your friend that she's going on vacation with her family, but also be jealous that they have enough money to do that, you know, but, and kind of confirming it with your child. Like I know that you're angry with mommy and you don't understand why I'm putting limitations on your screen time. And that's okay that, you know, that this is happening, but I am still going to set these firm boundaries for you.
And I like what someone put in the chat that, you know, they don't feel as alone after this, like hearing from, you know, just our personal experiences too. But it's so important to recognize that, like, if you have that bad moment, like, you know, Miss Hughes said they had that moment and they came back to it. Like everyone has those moments. Like nobody is a perfect parent, even if they, and again, like we always tell kids, like what you see on Facebook and Instagram is a highlight reel, right? So like you can look at some families or parents and be like, wow, like I'm really messing up. Like, what am I doing wrong? But nobody is perfect. And everyone has those moments where you just lose it and you say things you shouldn't say, or you weren't there in the right way for your kid. So we just want everyone to realize that. And like Sarah said, you're all here today to learn about this and learn how to be able to grow in this way. So you're already doing the best that you can do.
And I feel like that repair piece is the most important because that's where they learn. Like you're modeling such good ways of coping and dealing with conflict and stress. And if you didn't go back and do that, they're like, there's that missed opportunity for them to learn a lifelong skill, which I thought was kind of eye-opening, Sarah, when you talked to your ruler group, you know, that only 2 of the kids would go back and try to repair the relationship and their friendships, but they've only seen 2 of them had also seen that modeled at home.
And I said to them also, I said, now part of this is parents don't do everything in their relationship in front of you. I said, but you know, how many of you have had the opportunity and, you know, and not to say it's not happening, because again, it might happen behind closed doors. I said, but how many of you have had the opportunity to watch your parents or the adults in your life be in conflict and then come back and repair it? And none of them raised their hands. And again, part of that is because as adults, we don't do everything in front of our children. Like we do it behind closed doors. But some of it is also because as adults, we aren't always great at that.
Right. All right. If there's no more questions, we will wrap up. We want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And again, we'll be sending this all out very shortly.
I want to add too, if there's any topics people would like to hear, I feel like we're always looking for, we do these coffees 3 times a year. So we're always looking for topics. So if there's anything that you feel like you would like us to cover or want more information on, please email one of us and let us know. Because that's something we could potentially do in the future.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.